Join me now from California, author, filmmaker, podcaster, and daughter of Vice President Mike Pence, Charlotte Pence Bond. Charlotte, it's great to see you.
Hi, great to see you too. Thanks for having me on.
Charlotte, what do you make of these crazy, wild attacks on Judge Barrett? It's really appalling. I hate that they continue to attack her faith. They did this the first time around, and they seem to get away with it.
Yeah, you know what? I mean, Judge Barrett she's an example of how you can be a person of faith and you can also be a professional. And she's answered these questions many times. She's talked about how, she obviously, respects the rule of law and she respects upholding the rule of law. And she's talked about that. She's answered these questions and she has her record to show for it as well. So I do think that people of faith are kind of looking at this a little bit skeptically, and they're kind of saying, she can be a professional too, and she can be religious.
Yeah, and I'm sure you kept a close eye on what happened with Justice Brett Kavanaugh during the confirmation process and how he was treated. And President Trump is already warning to keep an eye on how his nominee is going to be treated and the abuse that they're going to face. And you think about the media, they love the idea of women in power and women holding these important type of roles, unless, of course, they're conservative. And then it's even worse in their eyes if they happen to, be Christian or Catholic or what have you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. I was talking to a bunch of people with Students for Life of America yesterday, and we were kind of saying how, it almost feels like a lot of times in the very far left in the liberal media, like pro-life women are not allowed to exist, and they're not allowed to even really work in their own professions. And I think that Justice Barrett is a great example, honestly, like I said, of somebody who can be religious and be professional. And we have that in this country, and we have freedom of religion.
Yeah. And then I've read several articles where they say, oh, she would be terrible for women. Why? Because she's pro-life. I don't understand how that's terrible for women. This messaging is so backwards, and the media seem to push this abortion agenda on us, and it's not going to work for a lot of people.
Right, right. No, I don't think it is. And I think that, we're all allowed to have our own views. We're allowed to have personal views and personal beliefs. And so, I think that I honestly don't think it's going to work out for them. I think there's going to be a backlash. I think there already has been. And I think a lot of people around the country are kind of looking at Amy Coney Barrett, and they're inspired by her, and they should be. She's a very accomplished woman. She's a mom. I mean, she has 7 kids. I mean, that's incredible. And she's an inspiring person.
Have you actually seen The Handmaid's Tale, by the way, on Netflix?
I read the book, but I didn't want to watch the show. I felt like the book was so dark that I was like, I don't think I can actually physically watch it. But I have read the book, yeah. And frankly, I feel like the book is a lot about government overreach, which I think a lot of conservatives get behind as well. I know it's been really twisted into this pro-choice narrative, but I think that most women, I think Meghan McCain tweeted this the other day that, if any woman is conservative, she's basically in The Handmaid's Tale to liberals. And that's the only kind of attack position that they have right now, which is just not fair and not true.
Yeah, and you never heard people talk about this until it became a show and popular, and now they make the references on everything. And I remember during the Justice Brett Kavanaugh confirmation process and the protests, when I would go there, they had the costumes out there. It was pretty absurd. And I haven't seen the show, but I accidentally took my parents to watch the show at the Kennedy Center because that was the only thing playing that night, and I wanted to entertain them in D.C. Big mistake. My mom's like, why did you take me to see this? It was terrible. So do you think it's pretty, just outrageous and absurd that they continue to compare conservative women or just being pro-life to The Handmaid's Tale, which is some fiction, fantasy, fever dream of the left?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it definitely is. And, in the book, it's not a recent book either. Like you said, it's kind of become this pop culture thing. And really, it's a scare tactic of telling people that this is what we're going to live in if, we don't accept the narrative that abortion is the only choice that you have, which is really the narrative of the liberal left.
Definitely. And I want to give you a chance to talk about your new podcast. I follow you on social media, so I saw that, and I'm very impressed.
Oh, thanks.
What's your goal with this podcast? Who are you trying to reach?
Yeah, it's on the Edify Christian Network podcast, but it's on Spotify as well. It'll be on other platforms. And so it's called Doubting It. And it's basically about faith. I wanted to do a podcast about faith, but I didn't really know what to do it about because a lot of millennials And young people don't necessarily adhere to one religion anymore. A lot of that's kind of a rise in our generation. And so I wanted to address that, but to also just address it by creating a space where people could ask questions. So I have a lot of faith leaders on the show that I interview, and we just talk about their faith journeys of different religions, and also just how doubt plays into that and how it's okay to ask questions. So yeah, it's called Doubting It, and it's been really, really fun, really rewarding.
Oh, that's great. And that's a good thing to ask more questions. We need a bigger conversation going on in this country. And again, thank you for your time. We know that you've been busy campaigning with your dad. I believe you were in Arizona at a veterans event. So we really appreciate your time, Charlotte. Thank you.
Yeah, it's so fun. We're getting out there, and it's great. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you.
Want to see more videos like this? Click on the link below and subscribe to One America News on YouTube. And call your cable provider and kindly demand that One America News is added to your lineup. Call and subscribe today.